Hello, friends. This is kind of weird because we have a guy from real life here. Daniel, I've known you for a little while, but I never knew until a mutual friend told us that you were in the military. And we're kind of gathering intel, in quotes, of course, very much so in quotes, from people who've served in the military about the reality of things here. I'm trying to focus more on the war and all that sort of information. So, before we get into maybe a little bit about you and what you're doing in Russia, this, that, and the other, could you tell us about what your actual service was?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Um, I was in the U.S. Army for 4 years. I joined when I was 19. I was in the 1st Armored Division in Germany for 3 years. And while I was stationed in Germany, I was called to go to Desert Storm
Hmm.
in at the end of 1990 to 91. I was there. And I was on the first M1A1, the first M1 tank. I was on the M1A1 Abrams.
Oh.
Yep, and I was a gunner, and it's a 4-man crew. But the armored tanks are not good in the desert.
Uh-huh. Well, let's then get to that. Okay. So, this M1 Abrams, this is what's being shipped to, in theory, the front lines in Ukraine? Is this the exact same tank that you served on, a similar tank, or the same class, or what?
It's the M1, I believe. What is it now? M1A 12. I don't know what the latest model is, but it's the same tank, but it obviously it has upgrades.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the problem with our tank, I don't know if they actually rectified this. The filter system, sand was filling up. So every
Well, what filter? You mean the filter for the engine or for the
yeah
fuel? Oh, the
for the
engine. Ah,
engine, yeah. We had a jet engine in the tank,
yeah.
and we had 3 filters. So every like 5 or 6 hours, we had to stop, take the filters out, clean out the sand from inside the box where the filters were,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had to clean out the filters themselves.
Um,
So,
how
yeah,
how difficult of a process was that? Was that something where when they designed it, they sort of knew that would happen, so they made it accessible, or are you talking about like you're having to unbolt all sorts of stuff to get at it each time?
no, the process wasn't difficult to get to the filters. It was
Yeah.
actually on top of the back deck where the engine,
Mm-hmm.
next to the engine. And you just you lift open the doors and you just pull the 3 filters out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was time consuming,
Yeah.
and it was a problem because we were the ones who drove all day and all night from Saudi Arabia to make our way around to actually get behind. We were getting behind the troops, the Iraqi
Mm-hmm.
troops. So we drove a long distance for for like 18 hours.
Oh, that's interesting. So not from Kuwait, but from Saudi Arabia.
No, we flew from Germany into Saudi Arabia
Uh-huh.
and actually stayed for about a week,
Mm-hmm.
uh, waiting for our equipment to come by ship.
Yeah.
And then we went down to the dock. They unloaded the tanks from the ship. We got into our tanks, and then we left for the desert.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe this is a military secret, but how did you keep the thing fueled? Because a tank is it's not exactly like a I don't know, a Ford F-150. I mean, you're really burning through fuel, and if you're having to travel large distances, how did you keep it fueled up?
Yeah, it's we had our tank, I believe, was 500 or 505 gallons, I think we held
Uh-huh.
in the tank. And it was 1 gallon per mile.
Mm. Oh, well, still, that's actually a pretty extensive range then.
Hmm.
550 miles?
I don't know if it was 550, the tank. It was somewhere like 500, 505, I believe.
Uh-huh. But
And
still, you probably had, well, I don't know. I'm trying to imagine these distances in my mind. I'll put it this way: how often did you have to refuel, or was 500-ish miles enough to get from sort of point A to point B, where you guys were ready to kind of hunker down for a while?
no, we had to stop uh, quite often, actually. And when we did, we always made like a horseshoe formation, to
Mm-hmm.
protect us while we're waiting, while each tank is being fueled.
No.
And then that's when we would take the filters out again,
Mm-hmm.
clean out the sand, clean the filters, and maybe grab a little something to eat.
No. Oh, so that
But
was also dinner time. Oh, that makes sense.
snack, or depending on what time, because we traveled all through the night. Actually, our driver fell asleep at one point. That's how long we were driving, and
Oh.
we were only taking breaks to fuel.
Oh,
So,
I see. So you're going on like a 24-hour sort of regimen
well,
almost.
we had to go from Saudi Arabia and actually drive all the way to reach, Kuwait.
Now, this might seem like a weird question, but so when you actually arrived at your destination within Iraq before the attack, I assume you were allowed to sleep for a while? Or did you guys actually start making maneuvers completely exhausted?
No, no, you know how the U.S. government works. We actually sat in the middle of the desert for about 2 months, 2.5 months. We set up
Oh.
tents.
Oh, okay.
You have the air campaign. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know how it is. They just flew for 2 months. They were just bombing everything, and we were just in the desert watching the planes, watching the bombers and the fighters go over us, and we can see in the distance the bombing. So we set up actually two tents,
Mm-hmm.
and we were able to sleep in tents, not on the tanks. And we had our formation.
No.
And yeah, we just hung out in the desert and we waited for the ground offense to start.
Mm.
And once they were done with their bombing campaign, you know how it is, they destroy everything.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's civilian or military; they just bomb everything. And finally, we got called to go in, and the ground war lasted about 6 days,
Oh, I see. And
7 days.
so while you guys were sort of in the horseshoe formation with the tents sort of hanging out, at any time did you experience any threats? Or was the air power so overwhelming that no one even had time to even think about you guys out there?
Yeah, we were behind. We were behind enemy lines. We didn't have. Of course, we had guard. We were pulling guard duty 24/7.
Yeah.
But we had one or two uh, instances where we had a truck coming at us and coming at us at full speed. So we had to grab some tanks and some Bradley infantry vehicles to go out and stop what we thought was a threat, but it ended up not being a threat. But no, we were far back enough
Hmm.
that we didn't have any problems.
Oh, well, you guys were a lot more professional than a lot of the military. You guys actually analyzed a threat rather than just starting shooting.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, 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 yeah.
unfortunately, that the opposite policy was in place with a lot of people. So you actually had experience with those Bradley fighting vehicles, because then this is very important, because I don't mean to be a jerk or anything, but of all the tech, the big pieces of tech that the Ukrainians have used, the Bradley fighting vehicle and those Max Pros are the biggest piece of junk I think that have ever been made. What was your? Because obviously you talked to the other guys. You're stuck there for 2 months. You were there for a while before. They didn't just grab you off of civilian life and put you in the tank. The guys who served on the Bradley, what did they tell you about it? Why does it seem to be such garbage?
Good question. They, I didn't talk too much to the infantry guys about that, but it just seemed to break down quite often. Maneuvering, things like that. But no, I don't really have much to say about the Bradleys because we weren't, that was infantry. We were an armored division, which they're connected to us, but not in our battalion.
I see. So they were a little bit
in our battalion, but
yeah.
not in our company.
Yeah.
So they weren't near us. We were just with the tanks. But some guys, were complaining, about the maneuvering and it breaks down too much. Yeah.
Well, then ultimately you experienced the actual. Then you said 6 days of actual ground war. So besides being maybe on a little bit on the the scary side, besides that, what was that experience like? Those 6 days. How what being in an actual war from the human side and also on the technical side of being having your destiny linked to this mechanical beast. How did you perform? How did it perform? And what was that experience like?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. I was in Germany, like I said, 3 years. So I was training with my company and my crew for like 2.5 years, or about 2 years, 3 months before we left. My father and my mother came to visit me in Germany because I didn't see them since I was stationed in Germany. And my mother's only brother died in Vietnam.
Oh.
And, so
gotcha.
my mother didn't tell my father. Her mission was not only to come visit me in Germany, but to get me out of going to war because I was her only son. So, and it was my uncle. His name was Daniel. That's how I got my name. So he died in Vietnam. My father was in the North Korean War. Was in the Korean War.
Yeah.
But my mom had a mission, and my father didn't know. And we were sitting in the captain's office of the company with the first sergeant. And just my parents and myself, and my mom throws this into the mix, saying, well, my only brother died in Vietnam. Daniel's my only son. I don't want him going. And I was like, oh, and my father was like, no, he's going,
Okay.
So.
Well, hold on, and then and how did you feel about all of this? Did you want to go
Listen,
to Iraq?
I'll be honest with you. I joined the military. We were poor growing up. We didn't travel. I didn't go anywhere as a child. So one of my main reasons for joining the military was to travel and to experience, other parts of the world and also to serve my country. But my father, my uncle, myself, I believe, we were brainwashed, to be honest with you, to thinking that we're protecting our country, but protecting our country from what, really. So, but yeah, I was 19 and I wanted to serve my country like all the men in the family did, and but also to travel and to experience other parts of the world because I didn't travel at all. My first time on an airplane was flying to Germany as a soldier. So, but yeah, I told my mom, I said, no, I said, Mom, listen, I'm training with my company and with my tank crew for 2 years. If I don't go and they have to put in a new crew member and I don't go and something happens.
They're at a much higher risk with a new guy.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
2 years of training at the range. We used to do 30, 40 days in the field, just doing exercises, and we had a bond. It's a brotherhood.
No.
It's a relationship that you have with your friends, your soldiers together, and what you've gone through. You can't explain that
Hmm.
to you. I still have a guy now that I talk with since basic training,
Oh, wow.
and we ended up going to Germany together, and we're still in contact. And
Uh-huh.
and he lives in Ohio, and I'm in Russia, but you just have this special bond, especially when you go through war together, But I told my mom, I said, Mom, I have to go. I have to go. I can't not go. So, but I'll be honest with you.
Hmm.
2 months, we were told 2 months before we were going. I was 19, and there were times where I cried. I was deathly afraid of dying.
Oh, you really thought that you were going to meet pretty stiff resistance or something.
I didn't know what to expect.
Uh,
We're going to another whole continent, and I'm 19, and for we had 2 months. We were told 2 months before we were going, and that's just a lot of time to think,
oh,
and
I see.
a lot of guys, we went and we did what we had to do, but we're human, and
Hmm.
and at 19, thinking that you might be you might die in a war. It's a lot to handle at a young age.
No. Well, that's kind of one of the paradoxes there, where I'll never forget where basically one of the guys who was like one of the upper guys in, like there's something I call it medieval fighting. Today would be called HEMA or something of that equivalent, where guys in the like knightly armor go beat each other up with blunted weapons. Right? I've done that in the past, and the one guy who was one of the guys who was really good at it, he was about my age now. He was in his mid 40s, and he even said that something is that part of the problem is that when you're young, you have the physicality, but you don't have the brains to fight. And that it only comes later when you actually have the proper brains to fight and wage war and all that. But then by that point, you're already starting to fade away.
Right.
And that's kind of one of the tragedies of war is you get a lot of people there who are really only physically prepared for it, maybe perhaps not mentally prepared.
Of course. I mean, we were young, we were strong, but we're young. We don't have much wisdom, we don't have much life experience, and you're being told now that you're going to get put into a situation where you can be, harmed,
Yeah, yeah.
seriously, killed, and it's. But we stuck together, and we helped each other, and supported each other, and we went, and that's it. Let me tell you, one waiting for the 2 months, but once I was on that C-140, right?
No.
We all loaded onto the C-130 or the C-130. That was it. The mindset changed. Now you're going into survival mode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're not even thinking. Now you're just thinking about doing your job and getting home, and that
All
was it.
right. And so one day comes, you guys, you've already fueled up, you rev up the engines, and you go in. So what was the objective? Just to move to some sort of point on the map and hold
Hmm.
it? And
Yep.
how much resistance did you face?
None in the beginning. We were able to travel to our first uh, destination, where we sat and we waited. And then once the ground war started, yes, we started moving out, and within like 2 hours, we started dealing with enemy fire. And Saddam Hussein, he had the Republican Guard, which was his elite. So
Mm-hmm.
at that time in 1990, 91, he had the T-72, I believe, just.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but in his old guards, he had the T-64, the T-62. He had old Russian tanks,
I see.
and yeah, but he ended up trying to save the Republican Guard. So a lot of them they were just running. They weren't even, it got to the point where once we were like 4 days in, 5 days in, we were just, guys were just surrendering.
Oh,
We were feeding them, we were giving them water, and they were just leaving like their equipment. They were just leaving their equipment, still running, and they were just walking towards us, surrendering.
I see. So those images so that was the one time the media didn't lie, because the media did sort of make it seem like, for the most part, a lot of the Iraqi forces just gave up. They weren't particularly loyal to Saddam and were more interested in living.
See, what the problem was,
yeah,
they were starving. The summer of 1990, they were digging in. That's when they invaded Kuwait.
Yeah.
So by the time we got there and we got going, these guys were waiting 6 months, 7 months, and then once they started bombing, they couldn't get food, they couldn't get water. These guys were done. They were
so
done.
Essentially they'd already waged an offensive for half a year and they were exhausted completely.
And then once the U.S. started bombing everything, they had no access to food, to water. We were taking care of them. We were giving them food, we were giving them water, and so I remember we pulled up and there was a BMP-1, a Russian BMP-1, still running. I opened up the back doors, AK-47, like the thing was they just left. They just left their equipment, and they were just looking for any American to surrender to.
Mm-hmm.
By like the 5th day of the ground.
Interesting. Then this might then maybe not be an appropriate question, but who knows? Maybe you can answer it. Was your equipment then, your tank, and I guess the other men's armored fighting vehicles and all that, were they up to the task at the time? You do think that you were given, or were there some times where it was like, what are we doing?
Desert Storm was an opportunity for the U.S. and NATO to try out all their new equipment. There was nothing that we used that was in war before. Everything was new. The tanks, everything we were using. And I believe that's what's happening in Ukraine now, too. A lot of things that are being sent to Ukraine are also to test to see how it works. But in Desert Storm, yeah, the M1A1, it was the first M1. Never had any battle experience before. So we had dignitaries, we had high brass, we had VIPs flying in, coming out, jumping onto our tank and just shooting things to practice and just destroying things.
Oh, just like some shack in the distance or something?
We had helicopters flying in with high brass or VIP people jumping onto our tanks and destroying the equipment. That was the mission. Our mission was to destroy everything that all the military equipment from Iraq.
Oh, so like all that Soviet stuff, you guys would just one by one shoot it to get rid of it?
So they had, so it was like a game for some people. They were just coming in and, we'd get off the tank and these people would get on the tank and they would just, target practice.
Oh.
But Desert Storm was, we had 500,000 troops. So let me ask you the question. We had an opportunity to take out Saddam.
Yeah.
If he's such an evil man, right? Why did we bring 500,000 troops and all of our equipment, and then they stopped us at the border of Iraq? That's the time. If he's such an evil man and he invaded another country, why not then? Why not take care of the situation then? They didn't. Not in 1990, 91, and then it didn't happen until the Iraqi war.
I could only guess that the official logic at the time was that they wanted to stop the invasion of Kuwait, and that was the actual mission.
That was our mission.
Because remember, American foreign policy before, or I should say before, at the moment of the end of the USSR was still was a lot more sane than it is today.
Mm,
Today, I think things would be done very differently and very chaotically than they were back then. Because
right.
essentially they got what they wanted, and the mission was to stop the invasion. So, but then again, how did that affect you guys? So you eventually, you guys put your lives on the line there. Although you mentioned that you didn't come under much fire, if at all, but still you put your names down on the dotted line, and then you're just sent back. What was the effect on you and the other servicemen due to that decision?
Well, we did see action, and fortunately, none of us in my battalion in Germany were killed.
Mm-hmm.
But we did come under. We were engaged. We were engaging. We did see action.
Mm-hmm.
But and then when I went from Germany to Fort Hood, Texas, unfortunately, the new battalion I went to, they lost. They lost. They lost some people. But
Notable number, I see.
yeah, but I think we lost more with friendly fire during Desert Storm.
Oh, I would have to assume that fire had to come from pretty far away then, because your tank and basically the silhouettes of U.S. equipment are very different from Soviet silhouettes and others. Or
Well,
how did this happen?
well, I can tell you one thing that happened. We were driving. It was at nighttime, and suddenly we start seeing tanks shooting
Mm-hmm.
in front of us, and we're like,
Yeah.
well, what's going on? Well, they're shooting into the back of friendlies. So things happen. But from what I understand,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the Americans who were killed in 1991 were killed from friendly fire,
Wow,
not from enemy.
I see. And that's why war is fought in lines, so you don't go in front of your own guys.
Look,
Yeah,
we traveled 18 or 19 hours of driving nonstop,
yeah.
and then you're going from day to night. And then some guys, if you're not sleeping, who knows? We start seeing tanks in front of us shooting, and we're like, what's going on?
Oh, hey, I'm not trying to say I'm the bravest person in the world. Trust me, I understand where it comes from, because with the war that's happening in Israel/Palestine right now, they mentioned that there's going to be as the more there's going to be urban warfare, the more there's going to be friendly fire, because
Mm-hmm.
the sort of Hamas local Palestinians are obviously not elite special forces, and they're fighting against the IDF, which has a ton of reservists. So you have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who are not professionals, who are going to be scared, like I would be, and they see something move, it's getting shot.
Let,
And
yeah,
so that's there's going to be probably a lot of that coming up.
yeah. Your adrenaline, unless you experienced it, because look, we were shot at, but
Yeah.
fortunately enough, the tanks that were shooting at us were too far away. The rounds just bounced off our tank.
Oh, really? Oh,
We
so
had
you
friends.
actually got hit.
Yeah, no, I won't go into details, but yeah, I saw enough that it took me years after I got home to get over things. I don't usually talk about my experience in the
Well,
military.
thank you for making an exception for us.
But
I know how that can go.
listen, unless you witness it and go through it, um, and to be honest with you, it was about you go into such protective mode and your adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until about 3 or 4 months after, right
Yeah.
after I got back. I went back to Germany. Then I went to the States. I had a month off
Mm-hmm.
between Germany and Texas.
Yeah.
In that month, it was probably 3 or 4 months after I got back, I had a nervous breakdown because I finally realized what I went through. That's the that's the your body protecting you while you're in,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
war, in war, and it protects you, the adrenaline, and you're in this protective mode. But 3 4 months afterwards, I had never experienced it before, but I had like a panic attack or a nervous breakdown or something, and it was finally my body telling me, "Man, you're safe. You're home. Everything's okay." You know.
Well, yeah. Then you
So
got time to sort of let loose. Uh,
you
so then I guess going from the emotional, but again back to the serious, because I have to ask this question, or else the interview would be kind of a fail. So do you think that the Abrams tank is actually going to make any sort of significant difference in Ukraine? Is this thing really like a kind of combat beast that's going to have some sort of major battlefield effect? Or is it sort of just a tank that's a lot like a lot of the other tanks out there, and everyone's got tanks, and it's not that big of a thing?
my opinion is, without air cover,
Mm.
if you don't have, see, we had air superiority, like in Desert Storm, we had the air.
Yeah.
We had three A-10s with us. We
An
had
A10 is what?
the A-10, the Warhog,
Yeah, yeah.
the one that has that, what is it, a 50 cal in the front, or I forget what caliber it is, and bzzz, just
Yeah,
they're called tank busters
yeah.
because the top of the tank is where the weakest armor is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we had air power with us. We had a call. There were, I don't know how many tanks that were waiting a couple of miles, enemy tanks in front of us. Boom, three of those planes flew over, took out most of them by the time we got there.
Mm.
So this situation, it doesn't matter what you have, an infantry vehicle, an armored, a tank. If you don't have air power protecting you, I don't think, the M1A1, the M1 or the Abrams tank is going to make any difference in Ukraine.
Mm.
That's my opinion.
Hmm. All
Because
right.
listen, the battlefield today is totally different than when I was, right? You have drones,
Yeah.
you have drones doing reconnaissance, you have drones dropping bombs. I mean, we didn't have that, but we had the A-10s with us. Anytime we needed air support, we just called it up, and they would fly in front, take out and then we would do the rest. So I don't know the situation in Ukraine now. Do they have any air to protect? I don't think they have planes protecting their tanks and their infantry vehicles and their soldiers, right?
Yeah. There shouldn't be that much left. I'm always surprised that every once in a while I do hear about some sort of Ukrainian plane getting hit, and it's always amazing that there's anything left at this point, because even sort of at the beginning of the war, they struck pretty much every airfield they had, and
Yeah.
so I don't even quite know where they're taking off from at this point.
Well, listen, I'm out of the military like 33 years now,
Yeah.
and I don't really know much about the latest Abrams tank, but I don't. It doesn't matter what you send to Ukraine. I don't think it's going to help. That's my opinion.
Mhm. And is did your military career have an effect on your decision to move to Russia in any way, or do you think that that would have happened inevitably?
Listen, my wife is Russian, and we met in upstate New York
No.
22 years ago. Now, 23 years ago, if you would have told me, yeah, I would be living in Russia and raising my children, and I
Well,
would,
that was Boris Yeltsin's Russia, so no one, even the Russians thought they'd be living here. Yeah.
23 years ago, I'd tell you, what do you drink? Well, what's in your tea? Like, what are you sipping on? Because,
Yeah.
but I met my wife, and we lived together in New York for 12 years. And that was fine for the two of us. But when my son was born, I started doing research to see how I can make the environment for my children healthy, right? So I just started researching, and that was it. That when I started researching, I started going down the rabbit hole. And I started learning and learning a lot. And I said to my wife, when my son was 6 months, I said, "We need to leave.
No.
We need to move to Russia and
Well,
raise."
I know you have to go soon, but could you maybe describe this rabbit hole? Like, what sort of information did you find out that was this like revelation for you?
Well, I was awake enough before my children were born. I kind of knew, but I knew, all right. I knew it was all right for my wife and I to live in America because I was awake enough to know. But when I started researching, then I'm learning about, vaccines, and then I'm learning about this program of how they're indoctrination. Is it?
Indoctrination.
Indoctrination
Yeah.
in schools, in universities, and I just started learning a lot about what's going on and what kind of, like what's happening in America.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't want my children around this. So I was blessed enough. 12 it'll be 12 years now that we're in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed enough and open-minded enough and awake enough to know that, you know what, we can't stay here now that we have children. So I was just learning, different things about this agenda to destroy America from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
There was this plan, right? That was happening, and what was happening in the schools and stuff. So and the food, just a lot of things. And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's go to Russia. And my wife's like, okay. So we came, and we're here 12 years. My daughter was born here, but what I've learned in the last 3 years, moving to Russia is probably my top 3 best decisions I have ever made in my life.
Really? So I guess you have no regrets, judging by the way you said
No
that.
regrets. I have not left Russia in 4 years.
No.
Not left Russia in 4 years.
Well, as you know, I'm kind of a public figure here, and I was advised that it would be a bad idea to leave, which is unfortunate. So, unless things really change in the United States, I think I'm probably going to be here till the end, which is not a bad thing. I'm happy to be here, but yeah. So
I don't miss America. I miss my family.
Yeah, me too. I do miss my family.
And listen, America's a beautiful country, but the current administration, open borders, for the last 2+ years. I mean, fentanyl on the street. I mean, you got who would want to go right now? Why?
I don't know. The people who talk to me, man, I get a lot of still messages from people, way less than in the past. But, they're like, why did you come here? It's such an awful place. I want to go there. No. Or people even ask me, like, what it's like to live there because they're considering moving there. But I do tell them that, really, if you're going to live in the West now, you can really only do it as an adult and maybe even as a single adult. Like, if you have business there, you have to do something there, you could do it. But you really just can't raise kids in the West. The thing that Russians call juvenile justice, which I wish had a different term. Essentially, the machinations that allow the state to take away your kids for dubious reasons. That's what that basically ultimately means. It's too strong. It's too scary. And as soon as I got sort of clamped down on with my own kids in America, I kind of knew, well, looks like, kids, you're not coming back to America till you're basically, it's like, on the second half of their teenager phase. Because, once someone is like, I don't know, 15, they're generally not going to get taken away from their parents because they're basically like a small adult. It's the little kids that are confused and not mentally prepared to defend themselves. They're the more kind that are more victimizable. So, and it sounds what I'm saying is insane, but it's the truth, man. I got the warning because my kid missed half a day of school to go to the dentist. And they were like, if this ever happens again, we're going to report you to this, and the other. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be here. You can report other people and take away their kids. I'm not going to participate in this madness. So
No, it's scary times now, and I have family and friends there, and what they're telling me that's going on, what's happening. I mean, come on, they're grooming children, right?
yeah,
At 4, 5, 6 years old, they're starting in school, and it's disgusting what's happening.
yeah.
So I have,
And despite the fact that we have a this supposedly educational system that's based on the states are in charge of it, and there's in the United States local authorities tend to have a lot of independence from say federal programs and all that.
mhm,
When my kids went to school in America, they went to school in the sticks, like in kind of the middle of nowhere, and
yeah,
all the same liberal garbage is there. It's
yeah,
not even there is no like escape from it. It is in every school, and with the way the system is changing, even the private Catholic schools, which essentially in Ohio, a private school is a Catholic school basically. So I know those
mhm,
terms become a bit interchangeable. But even with those, they still have all the same government mandates. So even going to like a paid religious institute won't save you from it or the influence of it. So yeah, it's not a real good time. Not a good time.
Listen, I was at the park about a month or two ago. We have a beautiful park near me, and it has a church, and they have a cafe. They have their own farm, actually. They
Mm-hmm.
make their own, dairy products.
Yeah, yeah,
And we were in there, and I heard a gentleman speaking English with a slight accent to his girlfriend.
yeah.
He's from Canada,
Ah,
and he's a shop teacher for 18 years at the high school, right? Wood shop.
yeah, yeah.
He's like, what he was telling me that's happening, it's like ridiculous. It's scary. He said grooming, pushing children, saying to dress. If they're a boy, they have to, to say, "Oh, you look nice in a dress." And are you sure you're a boy? You don't want to be,
The
And
whole thing. Yeah,
when you write an email to your colleague, you have to specify, like if you're a boy or a girl or something like this. He was telling me, like,
yeah.
it's madness. And you have teachers that are involved in this grooming and this stuff they're doing, and then the teachers that aren't, they don't say anything because they don't want to lose their job.
Well, yeah. Well, it's like throughout history. If you're a man and you're a fascist, you're one of the thugs that only enjoys beating up people when it's easy. When it's a one-on-one fight, that type of person is they're never involved. But the female fascist are the ones that gather the information, the
Mm-hmm.
snitches,
Mm-hmm.
those teachers that serve the regime. Trust me, man. There's unfortunately there's still plenty of lovely ladies with the Soviet mentality that still teach in Russia, but thankfully the curriculum, at least in Russia, is way better and way free of that stuff.
Oh, my
Um,
children, they go to a public Russian school.
yeah.
Nothing. I mean, my daughter's 10. I said, "Hun, do you know what LGBT is?" No, Pop, what is that? Like, there's nothing in uh, the schools, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They don't talk about finance. They don't talk about religion. They don't have
Oh no, my
books.
kids have comparative religious studies.
In a public school.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, my children do get a religious side of the education.
Oh, okay.
So, but it is
I
a
think
public school.
I have to ask my children, but I think like four things they're not really supposed to talk about in school. I thought finance,
Yeah.
politics, uh, sex,
Well, yeah, definitely the sex stuff. That is never.
except if it's anatomy, like if it's
Yeah.
what's the subject? Um, Anatomy, right? When they're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well.
But because I was my son and I we sat with a gentleman in Russia. He's an American, and he did a video. and we had a Russian teacher with us, a woman, and it was my son and I, and we were talking about the educational system. And she was saying she teaches in a public school, and things that you're not supposed to talk about are politics, money, sex, and religion.
Yeah.
So, but
Actually, no, I
I'll
think
ask
the
my
money
I'll
would
ask
be a
my
good
son.
thing to talk about because I think that that's one kind of problem is, but this is a bit of an aside. Just real quickly, is that you become 18, you become financially responsible, and none of us know anything about finance. So,
Right.
uh,
Well, that's the plan. That was the plan in America. Who started the educational system in America? They didn't want to. They didn't want to. They don't want thinkers.
yeah,
They want people who are going to be slaves to work. To work for these corporations
yeah.
and not to know how to make money, not to
Yeah,
be
and
an
that's why
entrepreneur.
one thing I do think that the Russian educational system is free. It's very good in the sense that it's free from the insanity that the West is going through. But I do think
Yes.
that there's definitely some. It does need to change. It needs to go away from this sort of Soviet model of again building the perfect factory worker or engineer into doing something that I think is more broad and focused on just building good future citizens for society. As my one co-host on the radio said, the first thing the Soviets did to the education system was they got rid of what would that be in English? Like everything related to rhetoric and
Mm,
speech and logic, like all
mhm,
that like ancient Greek stuff. That of course, in the during the Tsarist period, that was more for the elite. But they made sure
mhm.
that all of your ability to talk, being taught how to speak well, no,
Right.
we're not doing that shit. And unfortunately, it's still that way to this day. I know you have to go soon, so I don't want to prattle on too much here. But just sort of
But
the
listen, I think we both can agree that you know any education system can be improved.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
there is no education system that is perfect, but my children are not being what do you call it? They're not being
Indoctrinated.
right. They're not being exposed to
Oh
what's
yeah,
happening in the West. You
yeah.
know,
Well,
so
yeah. I mean, maybe I don't know if they sort of are on their own there on TikTok because still, although TikTok's banned now, but
no,
I don't
no,
know.
no,
There's still
no,
plenty of toxic information out there.
no,
So,
no, no. My children don't have social media.
oh, I see.
No, 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 no. They're 10 and 13.
Uh,
They're 10. They have WhatsApp and Telegram because of the chats at school, and they're both athletes.
yeah.
My son's training at a professional club. My daughter's training at a professional school.
Mm-hmm.
So they need to be in chats, but no, they don't have Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any of that stuff.
No,
Hell
oh
no.
yeah, my kids don't use that. But also, you know what's the interesting thing? They're not interested in that. They just they only like watching videos. And again, yeah, for sports they have to have all that Telegram, WhatsApp for all that
To be in the
organizational
chats,
stuff.
right?
Yeah.
But they like they do watch YouTube, but it's not stuff that I periodically check, but it's harmless stuff. They're not into that.
Hmm.
I mean, if you saw the TikTok in China
No.
and what the kids what how it is in China and what the kids are learning and what they're doing on TikTok, much different than the
Yeah, I've
TikTok
heard it's a
in
lot
the
more
West.
pro-human, pro sort of social development. It's kind of like, it's like let's do idiot dances to prove a point, but the points in China are like let's build a strong family.
Yeah,
You know what I
let's
mean? It's stuff like
yeah.
that. So,
Yeah, learning instruments, learning about math. No, and the app in China,
uh
TikTok, is not like how it is in the West.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it's really it's disgusting, really disgusting what's happening.
Oh yeah, man, and it is good to be free of it. But the battle for our freedom continues because there are definitely and unfortunately problems here that are going to have to be dealt with. Hopefully, again when the war is over, because even Putin just gave a recent speech about like his attitudes towards the family and abortion, and I think that when the war ends, we're going to go really on this sort of crusade for the family here, at least judging by that previous speech, which would be a good thing. But anyways, I know you're a good, very good preacher about sort of Russia and life in Russia. Could you maybe give us some
Um,
closing words to our audience about what they may not understand about Russia, or something that, or what did you really learn after being here for so long? What did Russia teach you? And then we'll vanish because I know you've got stuff to do, and unfortunately, I kind of do too.
uh, for me, real quickly, my wife and I, we had a house on Long Island. We were working 12 hours a day, right? We left 7 in the morning. We're home at 7 at night. No time during the week to do anything. When the weekend comes, you don't own the house. The house owns you, right? You're
Yeah.
cutting the lawn, you're repairing, you're painting, you're doing stuff. You have no time during the week to do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the weekend comes, and then you have to do everything on the weekend because you don't have time during work. So that was our life, and we both had good jobs, and we both were making good money. We had to. Long Island, I think, is the third most expensive place to live in
It
America.
sure looks like it is.
So we came to Russia, and I'm like, wow, life doesn't have to be like that. Now I have a life, I have
Yeah.
time, and I can survive, right? I can survive. Um, my children both were in kindergarten, Sadik. I didn't miss one performance, right? So what
Yeah.
I've learned is in Russia, okay, no country is perfect. Okay. Every country has their problems. But in Russia, you can have a life. You
Yeah.
can have a life, which means you can have time for yourself, time with your family, and that's what's important. You can't get time back.
Mm-hmm.
Time you can't get back.
Yeah.
Right? A bicycle gets stolen, your car gets, you can get a new bicycle, you can get a new car, right? Time you can't get back. And I'm in my mid 50s,
Yeah.
but I feel like the last 12 years I'm semi-retired
Mm-hmm.
because I have time. I don't have to work 12 hours a day, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
And
So
and
Russia has
I assume you, like most people in Russia, you tried to pay off your mortgages ASAP. So you're not like making mortgage payments or anything. You probably have
no.
like no payments for anything besides your telephone.
My wife and I learned, we're together 22 years, and we made a mistake in the beginning in the US, of course, credit cards and all this stuff.
Yeah.
It took us 4 years to pay off our debt in the States, and we learned from that. Today, we don't owe a penny to anyone. We
There
have
you go.
no debt. I can see back in the day, I used to work hard to buy the best bicycle, to buy the best car, to buy the best what? Why? Why? Those things that I thought back
Mm-hmm.
then, I thought really, right? I thought things like that would make me happy. No, it made me work harder to pay for those things.
Yeah.
It didn't make me happy. You know what makes me happy? Being with my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Having time with my children, watching them grow, going to their trainings, going to their matches, walking with my wife and with the dog. This is what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Not an expensive car or clothing, or we go on family trips for
Yeah.
memories, right? We buy healthy food and we have time together. And this is what Russia, for me, this is what Russia's about. Family. It's about family, having time with family, right? Raising our children. And, as you get older, you become wiser and you understand what's important. What's important for me is time.
Mm.
Not to drive.
Daniel, thank
Yeah.
you for being with us. Thank you for your expertise and giving us a little window into a life in Russia that has less political junk cluttered in the window than my window does. So thank you very much. And also, I apologize for being late today. Anyways, friends, stay tuned to Tim Kirby Russia Hardcore. You can find me on Telegram, Rumble, YouTube, basically wherever you're watching this video, just subscribe. Tim Kirby Russia, signing out.